Well, welcome, Sexy Wookiees, to another episode of the Sexy Wookiee Squadcast. It's your boy, Sexy Leader.
And Sexy One.
Sexy 2.
Let's go.
Yay, new book.
All right, Megan, your choice. You want to introduce the book?
Yeah.
I suppose I could, yeah. So in our little randomizer, we chose one of the books that I suggested, and it is, of course, from Legends from the old EU. We're reading the first book in the X-Wing series, Rogue Squadron.
Nice.
Yeah, so we started out with chapters 1 through 8.
First 8 chapters.
You guys ready to dive in?
Let's go. Blast off.
All right, so what did you guys think of that opening scene with the flight simulator? Look at Megan.
I'm so excited to be back to the rebellion. Okay. Yeah, flight simulators. I love it. I love the possibilities you've got with that. You'll see that I'm going to throw that into our stories a lot, just because you can run so many different scenarios, and it's, I don't know, it's interesting, and especially the mystery that it sets up of them not knowing who they're flying against and trying to guess by each other's flying styles, because you could fly in the TIE or you could fly as an X-Wing. So yeah, it's I think it's very practical and has a lot of potential for storytelling purposes.
Yeah, for me, it was the same way. When I was reading it, it made me feel right away that I couldn't tell whether it was a simulation or they were in an actual battle. So every time I read it, I'm just like, oh, like they're in a simulation run. Like, and there was a part in that first chapter where they're like, oh, was it Rogue 2's down or something, like it's a number 2's down, and I was just like, what, already? They already killed somebody off. Yeah, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a good book. And then at the end of the chapter, it was like, oh, yeah, it's because they had said like, oh, I can no longer hear number 2 or whatever the number of the person or the pilot had crashed in the simulation. So I was just like, oh, okay, cool.
That's it. And there's places like that near us, actually a lot near you, Jasmine, that does like fighter pilot simulation, and you actually sit in kind of an enclosed cockpit pod, and they play out like a dogfight, and you can link up with your buddies in the other pods and actually fly a fighter pilot simulation. So I'm like, it exists.
One of the ways that I get to work, I always pass it when I'm exiting the freeway, and I'm like, gosh, I really want to go in. It just looks cool.
We got to do that sometime. What'd you think, Jazz? It was a new element.
I like that they started out with the flight simulator, just because it's so different. Usually, like, you're in, the bridge or briefing room or whatever, and there's like just, whatever conversation. But then I like that the first thing that hits you is they're in the simulator, they're flying. Like you said, they're trying to figure out each other's flight styles. I was like, that's really neat. That's really cool. Just the attention to detail. I really enjoyed that. It felt like I was there. It felt like I was in the simulator. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a good way to open up the story and start it out.
I wonder how you guys feel about almost the technical writing style, only because I'm so into, like, I don't know, the nautical terms and even airplane terms. So you got your fore and your after, starboard, your port, pitch, roll, yaw, all this kind of stuff. Like, I know exactly what is being described. I can feel the motion. I almost get dizzy reading it. But do you find that kind of technical writing stumps you a bit, or were you able to feel it?
I just whenever I read those type of words, it's words that I don't know that they're actually would be on an actual aircraft, but it's things I've heard within movies and TV shows. So it's like, oh, I could kind of pick out what that word is because I've heard it before. But no, if you were to tell me like, well, what's that on here? I would be like, I don't know.
If I held an action figure and I described one of those scenarios, you wouldn't actually be able to play it out for
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
I
Fair
used to really be into planes, so I used to know all the terms. I don't quite anymore. But some of them I could make out, and I was like, okay, this makes sense. And then other words, I was like, oh, dear God, what happens if someone's reading this and they know nothing about aircraft?
Like, what's
They're gonna be
happening?
like, what is being said? What is this? So that's how I was like, I'm glad I have some knowledge. But then there were times where I just felt so lost. I was like, I don't know what I'm reading. It sounds really cool.
Something's happening.
I don't know, maybe like my 2 brain cells are taking a nap or something. And
yeah,
so,
it had been a while since, and I was reading those first couple chapters. I was like, oh geez, this is like really like technical, directional. But I was like, hey, it's a good reminder for us.
I like how technical it is because it shows that he knows what he's writing about. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but for those writers that know nothing about aircraft, like, I don't know how interesting they'll find the book because they're going to be, half the time, they're going to be like, what are they saying? What's going on?
I can see that. What else we got?
Gotta do my research for that. So, would you guys trust, oh God, how do you pronounce his name? Tycho?
Oh, Tycho?
Would you guys trust Tycho on your team? Why am I not?
Now, let me ask you, just because his backstory is set up in books that come before this, so when they throw him out of nowhere and they're like, yeah, we're not sure about this guy, he's iffy. If this is your first jump into the EU, you're like, but why? Like, he seems okay.
Well, they explained it in one of the chapters.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, he was in the Empire, he was a TIE pilot. And then he defected, flew with the rebellion for a while, but then got captured and put into a prison where they're known for doing like messing with your brain. So once he got out of there, nobody knew how he got out of there. Everybody's like, is he like a double agent now? What the heck? But he was like Wedge's best friend. So that's that story. So knowing that, I don't know, you'd have to be a little... If everybody's suspicious, you'd have to be like, I don't know. Ex-Empire went through this like brainwashing program. Like, you just got to be careful. But all the conditions that he agreed to, it's like, he's not going to get away with much if he's under that much scrutiny.
How about you, Ronald?
Yeah, I don't know. I trust pretty much everybody, even in the real world.
It's true.
It's until I get, until
Okay,
you,
it's fine.
What's the word?
Screwed over?
Once you
Prove yourself.
Get betrayed.
Oh, there you go. The other way. The other way.
That was close.
Yeah, once you get betrayed, that's when I'm like, oh, now you have to adjust. So you will have to give a chance to everybody because just like in past books that we've read so far, like there's a lot of people who are going to deflect, and he deflected, so Tycho gets a chance. I think the rebellion is also is a group that likes to give second chances to people. And I feel like the light side could kind of feel that, again, until they get betrayed, right? So probably, but I would wonder what that would make me, like as a rebel agent. Like I probably wouldn't be a good rebel agent because like I can't read people like that, and it would just have to be like I'd have to trust you with my own guts. So yeah, I'd probably have to trust them and just hope for the best of it.
I mean, I know the circumstances were suspicious, but after everything Wedge has been through, if he can trust him, I think that really speaks volumes. So I would trust him because if Wedge thinks so highly of him, I'm gonna trust Wedge's instinct on this. And then how you said all the restrictions that he agreed to, if someone was really up to something, they wouldn't agree to that so easily. You know, they might try to compromise or put up a little bit of a fight, but he was just like, yeah, I'm cool. Let's do it. So with all of that in mind, I would trust him. I'd have him on my team. Keep an eye on him, but I'd have him on the team.
As trainer, yeah. I'd be like, yeah, he could like show us, teach us things maybe. Like if I was going into battle, I'd be a little nervous about having him as like my wingman, maybe. But I don't know.
At least as a trainer, he could do a he could do a lot of good.
That I agree with.
Ready for our next one?
Let's go.
So some of them tend to make a fuss over Gavin's age, but you know, during those times when they keep losing pilots and people can't really be picky, should age come before experience and knowledge, or do you think it's okay that he's so young and he's in Rogue Squadron?
If he's got the aptitude, I guess age shouldn't be an issue. But I guess your initial assumption when you know how old he is like, how much experience can he have? Because, I mean, it's not just like, are you decent at piloting? There's a certain world wiseness that comes from age. You are better at dealing with other people. You're, I don't know, you've made your mistakes and learned from them. And there could be a little bit of that lacking when you bring in somebody so young. But I don't know, you got to think like in this big galaxy, what does age even mean anymore? Because you've got species that age completely differently. So unless you apply that standard differently across different alien species, I guess, but humans the most common. And so everybody probably knows 16-year-olds are just cray. Like nobody got time for that. So yeah, I would still be like, but if he does really well on his test, I guess, but keep an eye on him.
For me, age or experience, it doesn't matter. Everybody's learning the same thing. So for me, more it's when I have to pick one of those two, I'm really looking for what your attitude is and what your attitude towards the mission or, you know, the end goal is like. So I'm really looking at your attitude. I think your attitude, whether you're whatever age you are or whatever experience you have, that's what you're going to bring to the mission, to the goal. So.
Agreed. I mean, you know, like Megan said, the ages vary on species. So even if he is, you know, pretty young, 16, whatever, I don't think that matters as long as he's actually knowledgeable. And then it seems like they can't be too picky when it comes to age, as long as, you know, he has the knowledge, willing to learn, willing to be a team player. I think as long as he has the right qualities, I don't think age should matter. And I know that most of them are a lot older than him, but it kind of felt like they weren't really giving him a chance just because of his age. And it got me thinking about that. That's why I wanted to ask that for the question. Like, would you guys care? Does it really matter how young he is, as long as he's, you know, willing to learn and he already has a lot of knowledge?
I think you got to think about it in the terms of like a squadron, though, like how well everybody's going to get along together and work together. And if you've got, you know, all these late 20s, 30-year-olds or whatever, and then you throw some hormonal crazy teenager in there and everyone's just like, oh my gosh, this kid, like, I don't know, does that disrupt the team dynamic a little bit?
At that point, you have multiple problems. If you are putting people that can't work together or can't overlook an age difference, you just have a crappy squad to begin with. You need people who can work together, who can overlook, you know, differences in species, age, planets, whatever. You don't want people on the team that are going to hold some kind of like prejudice or whatever. So if you have people on your team that are like, I don't want to work with him because he's young, even if he has this knowledge, then that's just a problem there.
What if it's not like, what if he acts like a 16-year-old?
I don't know. I've met teenagers that act more mature than freaking 40-year-olds that I know. So I don't like saying all teenagers are nuts because that's not true. I mean, I've met people younger than me that are just more mature than people that are older than me. Damn, some of them are more mature than me. So, you know.
Yeah, hey, you never know until you give them a chance.
Yeah. I think that's the important part. Just give them a chance, and then if they act like a little annoying teenager, then you can judge them.
Well, I guess we'll have to see.
So you got to find out what attitude they have.
Yeah. I mean, he seemed okay in the chapters we read, even though he wasn't in it much.
No, yeah, we haven't gotten to know him too well yet, so we'll see.
He seemed okay when they were watching from a distance, so hopefully he's okay.
And he got a good score, so
yeah,
something going for him. Plus he's Biggs' cousin.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
So this is a fun one. How would you guys decorate your X-Wings? We need some fun in this.
What? Decorate. Oh, let's see. I love the idea of having the kill count on the side. Like, so fighter pilot. It's it's just so, I don't know. I just love that attitude. You're like, yeah, and like Wedge, this boss, he's got like 2 Death Stars on there, and all the like, there's like too many kills that they have to condense it down into like, oh, each one represents a squadron instead of like one. So I'm just like, yeah, for sure. And I would hope that I would have a lot of kills to paint on the side of my X-Wing.
Okay.
Let's see. Other than that, I don't know, color scheme. I love you, Poe. The orange and black, super sexy. Love it. Let's see. Yeah, no, it'd be fun. Like, I love the World War II kind of vibe with your kills and like the name and like maybe some like pinup or something. Mine would be of Poe, of course. And yeah, I'd have to come up with a name for her too and have that. Yeah, I'd go crazy.
I don't really go for the name kind of thing because if somebody used that chip prior to me using it, then unless it was mine first, then yeah, I'll definitely put my name on it. But if somebody had their name on there and then they just painted it over, I don't want those bad vibes on my X-Wing. I like 2 of the original ones, the T-65 Rogue Squadron colors, they're red and gray. And I also like I can do the T-65B, which is Blue Squadron's X-Wing. So I can go back and forth. One day I could probably be red and one day I can probably be blue. So either one, I could go for those. The kill count thing, though, is pretty awesome. Not so enthusiastic on how many kills I get and get to put on there, but if I didn't have to kill, I wouldn't. But yeah, that's a pretty cool thing. I don't like putting it on the helmet like as other pilots would do, but on the side of the ship, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll definitely do it that way.
Jasmine, please tell me you've got like a whole sketch for yours since you had time to plan.
So I have a picture in my head. I love the color black. I have since I was little, you know, matches my soul and everything. I like how Megan's laughing at me and Ronald's like, I feel it. That's a mood.
Like, yeah, that's true.
He's like, yeah, that's a mood. That's definitely a mood. So I would want it to be purple and black because some people, I'm not going to name names, want to be artists, are like, black's not a real color. Pick a different color. Fine, purple. So black and purple, my favorite colors. I would definitely love to have the kill count on one side to show how serious I am. But then on the other side, I have to have something like goofy and stupid, like pin up of a clone. Hey. You know me and my clones. So I'll probably have like a pin up of a clone or pin up a Bail Organa. Just something silly to show like.
But not a Wookiee, right?
It could be. Why not?
Could be.
That's going to go on the front of the ship.
Oh, yeah. We all got to get matching pin-up Wookiee decals for our ships, you know.
Oh yeah. So that's how, like, I'd want something to show that, like, I'm serious. I can get down to business, but at the same time, I can still be fun. So I'd get a pinup of like a clone or Bill. So
nice.
Has to be a guy though, because there's already a bunch of girl pinups. So
I know it would just throw the enemy off so much. I think.
they'd be like, "Is that
What was
Senator
that?
Bail Organa on her ship
Pew, pew,
as a
and you're dead.
pinup?"
Before they could even ask questions.
So that would be mine. Fun colors, fun and serious designs.
Good
I
choice.
mean, I can now I'm picturing Bail Organa in my head, and the TIE pilot just saying like, "Oh, great, Bail Organa, the first catch of the day."
First catch of the day.
And go to
That's going to be
Alderaan.
the last thing
like,
he sees.
Go to Alderaan and be like, "Hey, Brea, how do you like your husband on the ship?
Ta-da.
I'll hit up the artist to make you something
Oh
for your
yeah.
birthday." Oh God. Oh,
But I just like to touch up on the question a little bit. Like, I think for me, why I go to just original paint job is because I would be more interested on what the mechanics of what's actually on the X-wing, like definitely like what engine it has on it, what modifications it has on, and you know, definitely. And so that's why when I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's where I relate to him. Is like looking at all the deflector shields and you know how they explain the deflector shields. Like I was like, oh wow, like now I understand why Imperials say no guts, no shields. You know, because they just have no shields. I'm like, no, for me, like I better have shields on my thing. Like, yeah, I'll take anything. But that's the advantage over you know the TIE fighters and the TIE interceptors. So yeah, when I was reading that, I was like, oh yes, what more modifications do you have?
Standard Squadron matchy paint job, as long as all the mechanics are there. Fair enough.
No Sabines here. We don't repaint anything in my rebellion.
That's fair.
By the book. You are a harsh leader. Sexy leader.
So, sexy leader, are you gonna let us paint our X-wings then?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
It makes us stand out. I'd probably end up painting mine like bright blue. Blue, like mine would definitely be something blue. You know, I'm into blue. So.
That'd be really cool. You could do different shades of blue.
Definitely.
All right, guys, ready for our last question?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So we are 8 chapters in. We still have a bunch more to go. But at least for now, what are your thoughts on the book so far? Do you have any predictions based on, you know, what we have read so far?
Well, that's not fair because I've read this.
Ronald.
Spoilers.
Well, Megan, you could give us your
Yeah, no, because it's been years. It's been years and years and years. And honestly, as I was reading it, I was like, I don't remember anything about this. And then as certain things were starting to come back as different characters were introduced, oh yeah. I'll tell you, one thing that I love about jumping back into this era is, and one thing that's just a little bit different that I've noticed from my reading of the new books is just the richness of the world back then. There were so many aliens, and all these aliens had different jobs and all these different histories with the Empire and how they came to be what they were and where they, you know, and everything. And there's so many characters in this. Even in the first 8 chapters, like I've got like 2 pages of like cheat sheets trying to remember who everybody is and all this. So it's just rich. It's so. And it's throwing in these occupations and these people that you never really thought, oh, that's interesting. Like Nora Venn, who's the ex-lawyer or the ex-attorney, the Twilight guy. I was like, that's interesting. Like it's a legal person who hated the Empire and was, you know, discriminated against and everything, and he joined the rebellion. That's awesome. And then as you know, a person who's always loved the fighter pilot, you know, theme, like Top Gun and stuff, this is very much in that vein. So you've got like these hot shots rivalries. So you've got Broad Jace and he's really good and good looking and everything, and he's kind of like the rival of Corran, who's just like, I want to be the best. And I like that he starts out too, because one thing everyone complains about Corran is he's a Mary Sue, which he kind of is, but at least he starts out being very flawed. You're like, what a brat, get over yourself, dude. And he gets knocked down a lot. So I appreciate that. For as much as he's very gifted, like, Wedge doesn't care. He's gonna do what he's gonna do. So yeah, I love this cast.
I'd like to jump in on two things. So the first thing was, once we got to chapter 8, I like how when Wedge sends him back early than the other group, and then I love how Wedge was showing him how to be humble. Don't be this cocky new fighter pilot and then you're just good. It's like what Wedge is trying to teach to Corrin is that one, to be humble, but two, to become a teacher. So just how like Wedge is passing on his knowledge to these new group of fighter pilots, I think he's trying to mold Corrin into that type of character, just like him, because maybe he sees that enthusiasm. Maybe Wedge had that enthusiasm when Wedge first started. So I think that's what he must see in him, or what characteristics he saw in other pilots. Maybe Corrin has them, like, because Porkins was mentioned, Biggs was mentioned. So I think that's what he's trying to mold him into, becoming that humble, but you got it. Like this kid's got it, but I want him to know that, like, if you stay humble, like you're gonna go places, right?
Yeah,
so.
like you've got the piloting skill, but it's the teamwork that needs work.
Mm-hmm.
Right now,
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing all these other cadets as rivals and something to compete with, but they're your teammates. When you fly out there, you're gonna have each other's backs, and you got to help each other, not compete with each other. So it's a good lesson. I have one more thing to add. I love the mechanics of learning more about how X-Wings fly and how pilots do what they do in here. I love the strategery of, you can move your shields fore or aft. You can strengthen them in the back or in the front, depending on where you think you're going to be taking fire from. You can drain energy from the shields and make more powerful lasers. You can choose if you're going to do laser fire or torpedo fire, depending on what your distance is. You can set your distance a little different depending on what kind of battle you think you're going into. Like, all these things you never thought about, but it's like, cool. It's so versatile and it's so strategic, and these people actually have to be good at planning and math and and calculating the risks and everything. And I feel like that I had forgotten all of this, and it's going to be so helpful when writing our stories, when we're in the cockpit, and it's like, there's a lot of things you got to be doing other than just steering your fighter. Like, you got to be in control of everything. And then the relationship that you have with your droid, and how that helps out. I love the droids. I love the droids in this. You've got Emtree, you've got Whistler, Minoc, Wedge's droid. I like their banter. I love it.
So for people who are like watching this, Megan, like, can you just touch back on things that are like, because I didn't know what that meant, like, aft, and I had to really look in, digging deeper. So if you can like just touch on like terms like that a little bit really quickly.
Yeah, to remind yourself a little bit, you've got fore and aft. Fore, like before, is going to be your front. Aft, like your ass is behind, it's the back. So fore and aft, and then you've got is my screen mirrored? Port and starboard. So your port side is your left side, starboard side is your right side, I believe. Is that right, Jasmine? Do you remember? Pretty sure that's right. And then so when you're flying, you've got your pitch, which I think is up and down, and then yaw is going to be turning, and then you've got roll, and then they do like kind of slides, so you're going to kick the tail out of the ship. A lot of times they're rolling up onto the side. It'll say they roll up onto the S-foils, so that's going to be, you've got your X-Wing, you're going sideways like that, which freaking X-Wing pilots do all the time. You're going to go through a narrow space, you're going to sideways, get in there. So that's a lot of the stuff they do. So yeah.
Awesome. So I just want to touch back on, the second thing that I was gonna say. So a lot of the chapters, like somebody who is creating the animated series, the movies, really look back to these books, I think, because there's a lot of connections that I'm looking at some series and I'm like, oh, that's why. And I'm saying, this is why this is. So a lot of the things I'm like, oh, they're connecting certain things, not necessarily like in full detail when you start watching it on screen, but on book, it gives you a little bit more detail into the things that, and now I can go back into the anything on screen and be able to relate. Like you said, the way Poe maneuvers is all of that. I never knew, like, why could Poe break? Like, why could he do all these like cooler maneuvers that the T-65s couldn't do? It's just that they were not in screen; they were just on the books. Like, I was like, oh, okay. Like, so now that you're able to, explain to us that way, that I can now read forward, moving forward, I can now read and see how an X-Wing moves. Like you said, an X-Wing, how it moves. I was like, oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But just a lot of terminologies too is like, yeah, they didn't leave this everything up to video games. I was connecting certain things that I'm like, oh, the ideology came from something like this in this book, or maybe other books, but I was like, oh, it fits and it's connecting so many things for me. So I like that.
Yeah, or like the gravity compensator and how I just love that it establishes, oh, most of the time it's automatically set to 0, but Wedge prefers it set to 0.5 and gives the reason why. He likes to actually feel a little bit of what's going on, but you're like, oh, they are in space. They don't have artificial gravity set in there to fight the G-forces. They wouldn't feel anything. And I like how he says, well, that's what happened to Porkins. Like, he couldn't tell that he wasn't pulling up because he couldn't feel it. And just like, I don't know, it makes so much sense. You're like, oh, of course, that's why. And I like that you can adjust it. Like, I would want to have it at like 0.5 or maybe even 0.1 or 1 point or something, just to feel a lot more. But you can't obviously have full gravity, or you're going through all these G's and you're gonna pass out. It was like, you could, what do you say, blackout or red out? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like fighter pilot stuff. Like, I love it.
Unless you're a Jedi.
Well, I don't know. They still got biology. They can't pull those G's.
They're still human after all. Well,
and Jedis were good pilots, though. We had our own pilots, so.
That's right. That's like we. Jazz, what do you think?
I was thinking about what you said about the different aliens and species, and I was like, I love this because, I mean, I enjoy the sequel movies. You know how I feel about the last two. We're not going to get into that. But it's something that was really disappointing that I didn't quite think about until I was reading through the chapters was it's mostly humans in, 7 through 9. And I was like, what happened to all the aliens? Like, I'm rewatching the Clone Wars and all the aliens there. In this book, different aliens, different jobs. And then I like that there's the basic understanding of the cultures. And if not, then people are like, oh, I want to learn and understand. I'm like, where is that in the new stuff? So reading that, I was like, I love this. I'm in love. This makes me so happy that it's not just a bunch of humans, because that's annoying.
Yeah, the chance to invent these other cultures and
right?
Where they could, like, the whole, how do you say his name? Auril the Gand?
Yeah.
Like, and how he's explaining, well, this is how our hive or tribe uses names, and it's like, that's so interesting. Like, what a neat way to think about it.
Right.
So I really, really enjoyed that. And I really did enjoy when Wedge kind of knocked Corrin down a peg, because when I was reading and he kept getting like more and more upset about his score, I'm like, dude, shut up, dude. It's one practice run. You went first. Who's to say you were going to set the record? Like, in my head, I'm just like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up.
And then when he got mad at Whistler for it too, he's
I
like, you
was like,
betrayed me. I'm like,
you leave that droid alone. How
would you
dare
talk to him?
So that's what, when Wedge was like, step off your nonsense. I was like, yeah.
Get him.
Because, I mean, he made a good point. He's like, bro, this is teamwork. And I'm just thinking, Corin, you don't deserve to be there if you haven't even started anything and you're already like, I have to be the best. Like, shut up. You just sound like a whiny fanboy. Like, can you not? So I really enjoyed Wedge for that. Thank you, Wedge. You made my day with that. And then droids. I just love droids and their little personalities. They're such little sassy jerks. They make my life so much better.
I love it.
So how like all the droids do have different head types. When they were talking about, what is it, R5, who has like where kind of R5 blocks your view kind of thing, I was like, oh, I never realized that, the droid actually would block the view of the pilot. Like,
yeah, that was interesting.
So what would your dome type preference be for your pilots?
Either a BB droid or an R2. Those, I'm just so biased. I love those two so much.
Yeah,
it'd have to be one of those.
I think so. Like, that's one thing I love, that this makes everything so visceral. It explains the reason behind everything and everybody's opinions and thinking behind everything. So the fact that, it presents a lower target profile when you've got he calls it the flower pot head R5s and everything, but Wedge actually prefers R2 type ones. I would probably also prefer the R2, and I don't know why. It's just aesthetically more pleasing to me. It's simple as that. It's not practical at all.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could make it work.
I think for me, I would go for either R2, R4, because I think they have the same head type, but I don't know if it's just the paint job is different or whatnot. Maybe we can ask people who build their own droids that way. Well, is there a meaning if there wasn't any?
Yeah,
but I don't know what the cone shape head one. I think it's R6. There's one that's like cone shape head, and I think like,
really?
It's like we'd have to look into that. We'll definitely look into that, and then maybe next week we can show.
I don't know about that one.
But I don't think it would block your view. So I think like all the other ones, like it's like now I get why when a pilot's like, I can't see them. Yeah, you can't see them because if you look back and forth, your droid's head's gonna be over there. And so if you have a cone-shaped head one, yeah, definitely it won't block your view. But it's now I get why pilots are always looking, behind them, to their left, to their right.
Yeah, there was
it's like, it's like, well, like, can you actually see behind your droid's head?
Blind spot.
Unless it's like BB-8 where he can like actually fully go all the way in, and if Poe probably ever needed to have like BB-8 like drop down, like
get down.
But then I don't think BB-8's head is like would be blocking Poe anyway. So, but I would like to see those two differences.
Yeah, it's a little different. I don't know. Ronald, what do you think about all the Corellians we got represented? Dude, we even got like Corin's ex-Corsac. I'm like, sweet. This is it.
Oh man, I was just like, man, they all know each other, so they're family in some sort of way. Everybody who got into this like Rogue Squadron is probably somebody's like, oh yeah, that's my cousin, or my cousin knows
somebody,
or somebody was in Rogue Squadron and he was my cousin. So yeah, I'm loving it. Being, Relics being from Corellia, like, yeah, I could be part of Rogue Squadron. So I could probably say like, oh, Relics as a cousin in Rogue Squadron prior.
Probably.
Oh man.
Yeah, good to see that Corellians still rule the world.
But I love how all the books we've read so far like revolves around Corellia. Like
so
if we're not on the planet, it's just being mentioned. Like, I'll take it.
Like Coruscant, who?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was glad to see that pop up again in this one, though. I mean, obviously it would because, all the new stuff, everything was Coruscant back then. That was the capital. That was the center of everything. And it makes sense that, you know, you haven't really won the war until you've taken the core worlds. Got to get in there and recapture the capital.
Oh man, there's another thing that I read, and I want to get your takes on both your takes on it. I like how they mentioned Palpatine and Vader, and you know, like, what do you think these pilots or you know these ex-Imperials, like, what do you think their take is on that? Because if you were just a regular pilot, all you know is just take orders and then go where you're assigned, right? Only the heroes know, like, what they're gonna, what the bigger mission is, and that's their mission, right? But when you're just a regular pilot in a squadron like this one, like, what is your take on heroes and you know the greater leaders like Luke Skywalker, Han, Leia? Like, what are they to you if you were just a regular pilot?
As a regular pilot or as a ex-Imperial?
Just a regular pilot. Either one, or you know, just being not somebody who's part of that you know the inner circle of the heroes group. Like, what would your take be on that?
I think this kind of addresses it. Like, they are legends. They are the original, like, everybody knows the names of the original Rogue Squadron and what happened in that first Death Star trench run and everything. And like, a lot of things are based around it. And everybody kind of looks in awe on these almost mythological war heroes, and that all Corrin wants is to be Luke Skywalker, basically. Like, it's just larger than life. And so everybody kind of acknowledges this. And then as far as, you know, Vader, Palpatine, probably all they know is what they saw on the news. You know, they've never encountered him personally. But they would have heard rumors. I mean, maybe Tycho would have when he was in the Empire. But yeah, I think it would be to them like it is to us. These almost fictional, mythological heroes of this crazy great battle. And so that's why it's such an honor for them to like carry the Rogue name, because this is something that was started by these huge figures, and like now I'm one of them. Like, it'd be like an athlete joining a famous professional team and being able to wear that jersey now, you know? Like, it's all you'd ever dreamed of, and you're among legends now at this point.
I mean, they're celebrities, so just, I guess, kind of think about it like in real life when you meet a celebrity. If it's someone you really like and admire, you know, you're gonna want to be impressive. You're gonna want to be the best version of yourself. You're just gonna want to be, you know, noticeable for them. So I think being a pilot, especially being in Rogue Squadron, you may not be able to live up to the other celebrities, but you still want to make a name for yourself and make them proud. You're in that squadron, the legendary squadron, basically the celebrity squadron, the top of the top.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to make sure that you're remembered with the other people.
And I think it's the same way for the citizens of the galaxy. The fact that it talks about they sent the past 2 years, Wedge has been on kind of like a world tour of just, you know, speaking engagements or just making appearances as the legendary Wedge Antilles that, you know, fought in these battles and everything, like the hero of the rebellion. So I think anybody who's heard anything about the war knows these people's names and is like in awe of what they accomplished.
Luke Skywalker 2.0.
I mean, all the props to Wedge. He's one of the very few to survive all of those. It's like, oh man, I wish I had the link to it, but on Tumblr, someone made this beautiful appreciation post for Wedge, and it listed all his accomplishments, and they were like, he's one of the few to survive. He doesn't get enough love. Here's all the reasons to love this man. And I was like, yes.
Love my Wedge.
No, my X-Wing helmet's inspired Wedge, so Yeah, went since day one.
Nice. Yep. I am looking forward to getting more into the plot. I feel like these first 8 chapters were a lot of exposition, a lot of setup, a lot of character introduction, and kind of getting you used to how, you know, the mechanics of the world and how people interact. And then eventually they're going to get their mission and something's going to happen. So I like the setup, but I am more excited about what's to come.
So thank you again for supporting, and stay tuned as we adventure into X-Wing Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, blast from the past.
Yeah, I can't wait. If you guys have any thoughts or any answers to the questions, we'd love to hear them down below in the comments.
Or if you've got any extra ideas for designs for our X-Wings or yours, love to see them. All right, that's it for this week. Thank you guys. Thank you, book club. And see you all around.
Sexy Wookiees.
Wookiees.